In this Baldur's Gate 3 video, I'm going to be showing you 3 early game wizard builds that you can play, and these all play a little bit differently, and they all have a little bit different theme to them, which you will see in this video. So the first build is essentially a pure Evocation wizard. This is 6 levels of Evocation, and what's great about this is 2 things. First, because you're going pure wizard, you're gaining a lot of spells and a lot of spell slots. And second, at level 2, Evocation wizards basically can't damage themselves or other friendlies with their evocation spells. They basically, anytime they use one of these spells, characters in their party or themselves automatically save against these and take no damage. If they would take half damage if they saved, they take no damage anyway. So what's really great about it is you can throw these spells into your tank who's got enemies grouped around them, or around yourself if you've got enemies grouped around you, and you don't hurt yourself, which is fantastic. And this style of play, I think, lends itself extremely well to new players because they don't have to worry about this stuff, right? Like if you're new to BG3 or you don't know D&D 5th edition or you haven't played one of these games before, friendly fire is not something you typically have to worry about in RPGs, and just eliminating that by having 2 levels of evocation is really good. And the other thing is at level 6, Acid Splash and Poison Spray basically can't deal no damage. Enemies that save against them will minimally take half damage. So if you really like Acid Splash or you like Poison Spray for your cantrips, then this benefits you as well. And for feats for this build, I just took Ability Improvement for Intelligence because really all you're trying to do with these spells is connect and prevent enemies from saving. So the higher your intelligence is, the less likely they're going to save against your spells and take full damage from a lot of your spells like Fireball and Lightning Bolt, etc. So you really want to crank up your ability modifier in order to, make that happen. And you're not really so much focused on spells that have concentration. Like you can use Blur to make it so that you don't get hit by stuff, and that's great. But generally speaking, you're not worried about concentration type spells. You'll use them occasionally, but you're really focusing on just dealing damage in bursts and not leaning into concentration type spells. Moving along to the next build. The next build is 5 levels of Abjuration Wizard and 1 level of Fighter, or 1 level of Fighter and 5 levels of Abjuration Wizard. You can do it in either order, but if you do Fighter first, you'll gain heavy armor proficiency if you want to use heavy armor. And you will also gain proficiency on Constitution saving throws, which means that your concentration saving throws will also benefit from your proficiency. So there is an advantage to going 1 level of Fighter first. However, they do have different skills than the Wizard, so if you're worried about having the right skills for, outside of combat, then you might want to go Wizard first. But if you don't mind having different skills, then Fighter first would definitely be the way to go if you're just talking about from a combat perspective. And besides these proficiencies that you're going to gain, martial weapons, heavy armor, medium armor, light armor, etc., shield proficiency, you're also going to gain a fighting style at level 1. And I like to take archery just because I don't have any strength in this build. We do have some dexterity, and that makes it so you can use a bow kind of effectively, right? It's not going to be as effective if you're a pure dexterity character, but that gives you an option to attack with a bow or a crossbow or something like that. When you don't want to cast spells, you can always, of course, still use a cantrip. And also you can melee as well. You can have a shield and a finesse weapon. It gives you a melee option. You're going to be all over the battlefield with this build. This is kind of like a battle mage type build, and I'll explain why that is. Because you can wear medium or heavy armor and you can use a shield, your armor class is going to be way higher than the typical wizard. But you can also take the shield spell, which is going to increase your armor class by 5 for a round if an enemy is going to hit you in combat, so that further boosts your armor class. And anytime you cast an Abjuration spell, you're going to gain Arcane Ward, which is going to reduce damage that this character takes. So you're just going to keep reducing the damage that you take, so you can go into melee and be fine. You can go up close and use something like Burning Hands or something like that, something like Thunder Wave that's point blank, Shocking Grasp, whatever, and enemies are barely going to touch you. You're super tanky with this build, and that really affords you a lot of survivability. And what I really love about this build is how tanky it is. If you're running a very unconventional party, this could be your tank. You're going to have something 18, 19 armor class at the lower levels of the game, and then if you have shield and that triggers on the enemy's turn, you're going to have 24 armor class. That's really high for that, the first act of the game, and it'll simply get higher from there. So this could double as your tank if you don't really have one in your group, and if you're running some strange party setup. And as you move higher and higher levels with this build, you'll obviously move away from, trying to attack with martial weapons at all. And you'll just lean into the spells that you have. You'll have more spell slots, and you could probably do something like 10 levels of Wizard, Abjuration Wizard, and 2 levels of Fighter to give you Action Surge, so you can cast 2 spells on one turn, once every short rest, that would be really, really strong in my opinion. And this brings us to our last early game build, and this is another Pure Wizards spellcaster, but this one is a Necromancy Wizard, and it's focused on creating an undead army, and I want to show you how you can do that at the early goings of the game. So at level 6 of Necromancy, you're going to gain the Animate Dead spell for free. If you grabbed it at level 5, you'll probably want to respec and grab a different spell, and then just get it automatically at level 6. So once you're at level 6, if you took it, just respec and save yourself that spell. But what's really great about this spell is that it allows you to summon an additional undead when you use the Animate Dead spell by consuming an additional corpse. This means there has to be 2 corpses. Like, you can't summon 2 undead or 2 skeletons out of 1 corpse. You have to have at least 2 corpses to do, but you'll be able to summon 2 undead or 2 skeletons out of it. And you can only have 2 of these up at once, like your main undead or your main skeletons. You can only have 2 of these guys up at once. If you try and cast it again, it'll just replace the ones you have. So keep that in mind. And these 2, undead or skeletons are going to have increased hit points equal to wizard level. So they're going to have 6 increased hit points at this point because your wizard level will be 6. And they also have additional damage equal to your proficiency bonus, which will be +3. So they'll have +3 damage. So they'll deal a little bit more damage in general. So the way you go about kind of making an undead army is by summoning the zombies, and then when you're in combat, attacking enemies with the zombies. And when you hit enemies with the zombies, they'll have a status effect called Crawling Gnaw on them, which lasts 1 turn. And if they die before that expires, then they will become like a smaller version of a zombie. They'll be like a 10 hit point zombie that loses HP every turn and that operates on its own, but that also still applies this status effect to enemies they hit. So as you get more and more zombies and they keep killing enemies and keep applying Crawling Gnaw, your army's going to grow and grow. And what you need to do is you need to set up your zombies to be able to attack enemies as effectively as possible. You can use things like cast Unlarge on one of them so that its hit chance is higher and it deals more damage. Keep in mind that this requires concentration, so you won't be able to use other concentration spells when you're doing it, but you want to try and buff your zombies if you can so that they can be effective. You can use like Long Strider on them to increase their movement speed, or use something like Mage Armor to give them higher armor class, or you could use like Aid on them if you have like a Cleric or Paladin in your group. Something that will bolster their HP. That's really good to help keep them alive as well. But the main thing here is for you as a wizard, you want to set up your minions to be able to apply Crawling Gnaw and then finish them off yourself, or have the minions finish them off, so your army continues to grow throughout combat. That's really the best way to gain an army. So you might systematically pick off enemies that have already had Crawling Gnaw applied to them, or soften them up with something like Fireball or something like that, or even put them to sleep so that your minions can crit on them and not miss. Your minions have really weak attack, like their hit chance is very low. So like putting enemies to sleep makes it so they basically can't miss, and it's going to guarantee Crawling Gnaw gets applied. It's a really good spell in combination with this. So you really only need to use Animate Dead once in order to get those zombies out there. And then once you get into combat, you're going to be supporting them the best way that you can, softening up enemies, putting enemies to sleep, etc., and helping them to continue grow your army. And this is a really fun style of play that I think is like really unique to the wizard, is that, you're going to get 2 of these main zombies that will help you spawn more zombies, which is great. And as you get higher level spells, you're really going to be able to support these zombies even more, and it can be a ton of fun on the battlefield. You can use spells like Hypnotic Pattern and things like this, where you can like CC just tons of enemies at once, and then let your zombies go to town on them while you maintain concentration. It's really, really fun. Really, really enjoy that build. So that wraps up our 3 early game wizard builds. I hope you guys got something out of it and inspired you to play your wizards in a different way, or maybe in a way you hadn't thought of before. We do have more class guides and build guides coming, so stay tuned for those.